fear to give. I feel but I can't forgive. I go all in this time, yeah, I won't regret. I'll pick the best on trip, they don't understand. I play to win, yeah, I play to win, I play to win. Yeah, I play to win, I play to win. Oh, play to win, I play to win. Yeah, I play to win, I play to win.
Welcome to the Commissioner Evaluation Show. I'm John McGlynn. You can find me on a Twitter machine at JohnMcGlynn75. We have a nice week here. Handful of guys all ready to go. Talk about AFC, NFC East depth charts today. We'll finish the rest of the league 2 divisions at a time, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Today, I had the pleasure of talking with Colin McTamany as we do depth chart deep dive of the AFC and NFC East. So let's get ready for a show.
McGlynn is in. I repeat. McGlynn is in. Let the fun begin. This is the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with your host, John McGlynn.
Was that Herms?
He got them guests on the Rolodex, stopping by to talk about some Dynasty Superflex. Everybody, yo, Commish is in. It's time to sit down to listen to John McGlynn. Yo, who we trading, who we fading, who we getting off the squad. Knowledge never overrated, playing for number one. Hey, yo, McGlynn is in. It's time to let the fun begin. It's the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with John McGlynn.
So we are talking today some depth charts. And I love depth charts. I'm the guy. I fill them out all the time. I update them like every 2 weeks. Just because even though nothing changed, I still update them. I look at values. I look at ADP. I look at my own rankings. I think depth charts are one of the most important things in fantasy football. Even though you look at some of these depth charts and it goes from mountaintop to ground. It's a valley in a heartbeat real fast in some depth charts. So I brought one of the best in today, Colin McTamany, to help me out with some depth charts. What's going on, Colin?
Not much. I know we're getting a little bit of a late start here. Hopefully what I have to say is better than my preparation technically on how to get on here. I couldn't get my headphones to work.
Preparation and technology are 2 different words that are not even close to each other, because you can prep all you want to and your computer doesn't work, or your headphones start on fire, or your dog eats your cord, or whatever happens. And that's a whole different story. So I'm like Fred Flintstone when it comes to this stuff. I have a camera. I have a microphone. I know how to plug it in, and hopefully nothing goes. If anything ever was to go wrong, like I would just throw my computer away. I wouldn't know where to start or whatever. So,
better late than never. We're here.
We're here. So let's get the depth charts. First of all, I had a great weekend. I had it was my mom's birthday. Went to the White Sox game on Sunday. My daughter graduated high school Saturday. My daughter had a playoff game yesterday. She ended up losing, but she had a fantastic game. The team played great. They just had a better opponent. It was at my high school, Brother Rice High School in Chicago. Was at their biggest rival, Marist, and Marist beat my daughter's team, which a little tough. And my high school teammate and my son's football coach at Brother Rice, Brian Bankey, his daughter played for Marist, which was tough for him to swallow too. But we took a picture together. It was nice. It was a great weekend.
Cool. You got people there.
Yeah, tons of people. You go back to South Side of Chicago, you kind of just, no matter where you go, you're running into somebody. It is that way. I'm out in the suburbs. I kind of distance myself from everybody. That's my own fault, but it is what it is. It's nice catching up with old peeps, old friends, all that kind of stuff. So what's new with you? What did you do the last couple of days?
Last couple of days were work and got my lawn together. Not really exciting stuff, but if you're passionate about mowing your lawn and gardening, then you'll love what I have to say. I really just watched the weather forecast and made sure that the lawn was ready for the rain. Yeah, really exciting.
Really exciting. I have
you got to do.
I got 2 boys that love cutting the grass with the riding grass cut. I have where I'm at now. It's when I grew up in the city, I could touch both houses in my gangway with like a postage stamp to cut the grass. Nothing. It took 10 minutes to cut the whole grass. Now I'm out in the suburbs. It takes like 2.5 hours to cut the grass. So it's craziness.
Oh, you know what I did do though? I went to my 5-year-old. She's not even 5. 4-year-old niece's dance recital, and let me tell you, everything else is just about more fun than something like that. It was quite the experience.
Yeah, here we go. I hear you on the lawn addiction. Here you go. Yeah. So let's jump into some depth charts here. We'll start out with the AFC East. We got the Buffalo Bills. We know how that goes. Josh Allen. We got the running back situation is a little bit more muddy this year. We got James Cook catching passes, Damian Harris, Naheem Hines, Latavius Murray, wide receiver core, Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Khalil Shakir. It's someone I like, but I'm not sure the NFL likes Khalil Shakir as much as I do. Justin Shorter, Trent Sherfield. Then you got Dalton Kincaid, the big acquisition by a draft this year. So Dawson Knox kind of got pushed down the depth chart a little bit here, but I think he's still going to be a player on the Bills offense. So tell me what you think about the Buffalo Bills offense.
There's a lot to say about the Buffalo Bills offense. I do want to start by, when we talk about depth charts and you can follow me. I'm not good at this, but there's my Twitter handle. I remember tweeting last year, don't look at depth charts like the gospel right away. We're just starting OTAs. And I remember last year I tweeted out something. Tyler Algier on the Atlanta Falcons was 5th on the Atlanta Falcons initial depth chart, rushed for over 1,000 yards. He was a rookie last year. So where they stack up on the depth chart right now isn't so important, but obviously who makes the team is going to be very important. And there's going to be some really surprising cuts this year. The NFL has now eliminated the periodic cuts throughout the offseason. There's just going to be one massive wave of cuts right before week 1. So all these players, you really got to pay attention to training camp, got to pay attention to what we're saying on Twitter. P2W Fantasy, we have a Patreon. We're always talking about stuff on there. Got a lot of subscribers that are getting good inside info from people like John and I that are absolutely addicted to this stuff. So it's always good to talk about this stuff because it is a very fluid situation from team to team. As far as the Buffalo Bills go, I mean, it all starts with Josh Allen, right? This guy is a top option at the QB position. Whether or not you choose to draft him high is sort of a debate. Me personally, I've always waited on quarterback, but I felt that last year waiting on quarterback was kind of a detriment to a lot of my fantasy teams. Unless you were able to score Jalen Hurts a little bit later than some of your league mates, you struggled a little bit because there was really only 6 to 8 maybe guys that were studs at the quarterback position. Josh Allen last year rushed a career high 124 times. That's pretty significant considering he had a different offensive coordinator. Brian Daboll obviously went to the New York Giants, but the 3 years prior, 109, 102, 122 rushing attempts. The Bills have come out and said they don't want him to rush as much in 2023. So that scares people a little bit. But when you consider last year was a career high, yeah, I wouldn't want him rushing that much either. He got hurt last year. He had an elbow injury. Maybe led to their downfall in the playoffs. So Josh Allen, I still think is a slam dunk pick. And even if he's not rushing as much, you just named all the weapons he has to throw to. He's still lock it in. He's going to be a top 3 guy in fantasy football. I don't think there's any doubt about it. And talking about those guys, Stephon Diggs, top 10 guy. I don't think that's in question. He has been since he's been in Buffalo. He's going to lead the team in targets. But I do want to talk about Dalton Kincaid. I personally, and I know I've talked about this in the P2W Patreon. Again, get in that Discord. If you follow Nick Script at P2W Fantasy on Twitter, he's always tweeting out ways to get into that. The subscription is $5 a month. Barely, I mean, how much is a cup of coffee nowadays per day? So $5 a month gets you a ton of insight. We're always posting stuff there. But I've been talking up Dalton Kincaid in the Patreon nonstop. I think he's going to get 100 targets this year as a rookie. And I know a lot of people are a little shocked by that. When you look at historically rookie tight ends, the most targets of all time to a rookie tight end was Jeremy Shockey, 2002, 127 targets. I don't think he's going to see that many Dalton Kincaid, but in the last 3 seasons, Josh Allen has thrown 100 targets or more 7 different times to 7 different people. Cole Beasley was 3 of those times from 2019 to 2021. They even asked Cole Beasley to come back last year because he filled a need on their offense. I think they drafted Dalton Kincaid to fill that need this year as a rookie, as a tight end with good hands, and I don't see any reason why he can't have 100 targets. Even if you draft him and he doesn't have 100 targets and he has like 80, I still think you're getting like 60 plus receptions, maybe 700 yards. I think he's going to be a tight end 1 in fantasy football.
So you're talking about 3 wide receiver sets now. we're not talking about Khalil Shakir anymore. We're talking about Dalton Kincaid playing in the slot, right?
About Gabe Davis. I think Gabe Davis is the odd man out in this offense. I think Khalil Shakir is actually going to, maybe jump in a little bit. Gabe Davis is in a contract year. I could actually see the Bills moving on from him. He's a deep threat guy, but I could see the Bills letting him walk next year in free agency, and I could see the Giants picking him up. They have the former Bills GM and coach there, and they probably like him enough, to help Daniel Jones out. So I'm not expecting a huge season from Gabe Davis, but as far as dynasty is concerned, I do expect him on a different team. And if I had to guess now, which is crazy, on May 23rd, I say it's going to be the New York Giants.
Wow, there you go. That'd make an easy transition to the same head coach from before. Yeah, not as good as a quarterback in Daniel Jones, but he's trying pretty hard.
Yeah.
What about the running back room real fast? James Cook, Damian Harris. I think Damian Harris is the sleeper pick of all sleeper picks this if you got a startup draft or any kind of redraft thing, I could see Damian Harris just chewing up carries when the Bills go ahead this season. What do you think about the running backs?
Yeah, he's a downhill runner. Damian Harris 2 seasons ago. I know it seems like a long time ago, but just 2 seasons ago, he led the league in rushing touchdowns with 15. 13 of those were from the 20-yard line or in. He's excellent in the red zone. And when we say that Josh Allen, perhaps doesn't run as much in 2023, I think that's inside the red zone. I know they're kind of a pass-first team inside the red zone, but maybe they do want to hand it off to Damian Harris inside the red zone and see if he can churn out yards, punch it into the end zone. I think that's more so what he's going to be for in this offense. I know they've been using Devin Singletary in the past as kind of the guy from between the 20s, and then, plugging in Zach Moss, or even using Josh Allen from the red zone in. I expect James Cook to be that guy now between the 20s, churning out yards, getting the passing work, moving the ball down the field. And then when they get into striking distance, maybe that's where Damian Harris comes into play. You look at the last few years, Devin Singletary, running back 43, 31, and 30 on a points per game basis, never more than 11.6 points per game. So I don't think either of these guys are going to be studs per se. But like you said, if Damian Harris is scoring a bunch of touchdowns again, he could produce RB2 numbers.
Absolutely. I feel like Josh Allen was also somebody who tried, Josh Allen himself and the Buffalo Bills organization tried to run the ball a couple times inside the 5, inside the 3, anywhere in the goal, anywhere in the red zone. And it just couldn't punch it in. And Josh Allen had to take it himself on 3rd down because it was first and 2nd down with nothing happening. And then, they want to avoid that. And Damian Harris is a perfect situation for that with their dilemma they're having on the goal line. So
you're going to see a theme here today as we're talking about these NFC and AFC East teams is mobile quarterbacks really, really hurt the value of the running backs. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, even Daniel Jones. You'll notice when I'm talking about their running backs, especially, that their ceilings kind of just capped a little bit more because their quarterbacks like to run. And it's just the fact of the matter is they're going to lose touches to their quarterback. So I like James Cook. I like Damian Harris, but I'm not depending on them to be weekly studs for me.
Let's talk about somebody they don't want to run, and that's Tua Tagovailoa and the Miami Dolphins next. They want him to stay as healthy as possible. So
yeah,
Mike McDaniel's going to have a system. They drafted Devin A. Chain. They got Raheem Mostert, Salvin Ahmed, Jeff Wilson Jr., who I think that's deep down inside everybody's heart. I think everybody's a Jeff Wilson Jr. fan. I think you just can't help yourself. Same with Myles Gaskin. Then you got Waddle Hill, Cedric Wilson, Robbie Chosen Anderson, the depth chart kind of falls off the, Braxton Berrios, guys like River Craycraft, guys like that. The tight end position, Eric Sauber, Tyra Croft, Stern Smythe, nothing. They don't even really use tight end except for blockers at this point in time. So it's just wide receivers. I think A-Chain is going to be a big part of this offense going forward. I think there's going to be a mishmash of these other guys that have been on the team for the last couple of years, but A-Chain, I think, is the new guy. They drafted him just to keep the pressure off Tua being a dump-off guy. Well, tell me about the Dolphins offense.
Yeah, the Dolphins offense last year really lived and died by Tua Tagovailoa. When he was healthy, I mean, the first game that sticks out in my mind, if you remember early on in the season, was against the Ravens. They were just in a complete shootout. I think it ended up the Dolphins might have won like 45-41. It was something weird. But Tua and Lamar, he kept up with Lamar. They were the QB1 and QB2 that week. I think it was week 4. They didn't run a ton, though. looking at their stats from last year, 31st in rush attempts per game, so pretty much the bottom. 27th in rushing yards per game, 27th in rushing touchdowns per game. Only 9 rushing touchdowns collectively from their running backs. So then you look at their running backs, like you just mentioned on the depth chart, they brought everyone back. Mostert, Wilson, Gaskin, Salvin Ahmed. I don't even know if all those guys are going to make the team. I would bet Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson are, but Raheem Mostert's 31. Like, I don't know if he doesn't have a good camp or if he doesn't even make it through camp, he's out of there. They definitely like Devin Achane. He's a speedy weapon out of Texas A&M. A lot of people are comparing him to Darren Sproles. That's obviously yet to be seen at the pro level, but he was productive at Texas A&M running the ball. I know people say he's a little too small, but he can be the lead back. I just think he's going to be more of a home run hitter, especially in his first year. Neither of these guys last year ranked higher than RB30 on a points per game basis. If they're all active and healthy, it's going to be really difficult to sort out who's the man there. So Devin Achane kind of needs, I think he's a good best ball pick, in the event that any of the other guys go down. But I think the focal point here is these wide receivers, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I think there were 5 sets of teammates that finished in the top 15 wide receivers. These 2 were 2 of them. Obviously, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, a couple other guys on different teams, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, but Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, I think, finished the highest of all those teammates. So these are the guys you want to invest in this offense because even if Tua does go down, I thought their most important move this offseason was signing Mike White from the New York Jets to be his backup. This guy can ball, and I think things will run smoothly if Tua does have to miss time.
I love Skylar Thompson, so I'm not as I wasn't so happy with the Mike White fit. Skylar Thompson was what's his name's who's the guy with the Raven for his logo, the guy who does film all the time. I don't know why I can't remember his damn name.
I don't know.
The guy who breaks film all the time, but he had Skylar Thompson as one of the top quarterbacks in the draft for that year. So I'm not a huge fan of Mike White. I think he had a couple big games dumping off to Michael Carter 37 times.
Yeah.
So
he did target his running backs a lot. So hey, maybe that's a good discussion point. I mean, maybe if he does have to come in, guys like Achane can thrive, if he's hitting him in the passing game.
Yeah. So we're still in the division here. We're talking about New England Patriots now. Another guy who doesn't really move that well or move that much, Mac Jones. He's kind of brought in to be a ball control guy. A lot of this offseason kind of talked about possibly moving on or what they're going to do. They got Bailey Zappi, who's chomping at the bit to get in there as a starter. But you got Ramondre Stevenson. Talk about running backs. This guy is he's very polarizing because some people, he's going to be washed up. There's too many running backs on this team. They never use one guy. Blah blah blah. They brought in Juju. Doesn't really scare anybody. Tyquan Thornton, Keyshawn Butte was a draft pick that they're already talking about. They might not even sign him to the active roster. I don't know what's going to happen with it. Devontae Parker's been a staple there for years, more of a blocker than anything. Demario Douglas, also another rookie. They brought in Mike Gesicki to play the slot with Juju. I guess they're going to take turns playing the slot with each other. I don't know what they're going to happen there. Hunter Henry, more of a blocking tight end. So tell me about this Patriots team because this is such a weird makeup.
Yeah, I don't think it's a secret. I don't think it's too much of a hot take. This team's going to – it really starts and ends with how is Mac Jones in year 3. Year 1, it's hard to remember because last year was kind of a disaster for him. But year 1, 3,800 yards and 13 touchdowns. First Patriots rookie quarterback ever to lead his team to the playoffs. Pretty significant. So I think he kind of got a raw deal last year. Matt Patricia should never really be on a coaching staff again in a significant role. I think he's a big reason to blame for why they struggled last year. But Mac Jones now has Bill O'Brien as his offensive coordinator. Mac Jones kind of got Bill O'Brien his job at the University of Alabama the last couple of years. And then when the offensive coordinator position opened up in New England, who called Bill O'Brien again and said, hey, I think it'd be really cool if you came to New England, Mac Jones. So they have a good relationship. All the reports now are that he's thriving and looks like the leader they believe he can be. But yeah, 3,800 yards a couple years ago as a rookie, 13th. He was 13th in passing yards that season, the most passing yards of any rookie quarterback in that class. And that class was Trevor, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson. But still, Mac Jones finishing at the top of them was pretty significant. And he had over 200 yards more than Trevor Lawrence that year in 81 less attempts. So I think this guy can throw, but when you talk about the receivers he has to throw to, yeah, like you said, Juju Smith-Schuster, I think he's going to be the top target. I just don't really know what that means right now because even Jacoby Myers was the top target last year. Not a ton of production. I think Ramondre Stevenson's the guy you really, really want to invest in this offense. I think he's going to be a sure thing as a running back one. He was 4th in receptions last year, 13th in points per game amongst the running back position, and they didn't add anyone to the backfield. So if you're investing in anyone on the Patriots offense this year, I think the safest bet is Ramondre Stevenson. You could perhaps get him, I think, maybe in the 3rd round. I'd have to look, but if you go wide receiver, and they can get Ramondre as your 3rd round pick, your team's gonna be good.
Okay, so here's a big question here. Say something happens to Ramondre Stevenson. I have Kevin Harris everywhere. I traded away Pierce Strong in a couple spots, and I'm not really sure which. I think they're both pretty much the same player almost. I'm not sure it'll be just by a committee at that point in time.
Yeah.
But where we have to talk about backups here, we have to talk about handcuffs.
Sure.
Is there such thing as a true handcuff in New England, or is it just going to be committee back at that point in time with Ty Montgomery, J.J. Taylor, that kind of, just all these guys just kind of mishmashing in after if Ramondre goes down?
Yeah, if Ramondre were to miss time, I do think it would be a committee. And even if it's not a committee, I just don't trust Bill Belichick. I've always had these rules with myself for fantasy football. There's just certain coaches I don't really trust. I have trust issues with. Bill Belichick is one of them, especially with running backs. So is Kyle Shanahan out in San Francisco, pre-Christian McCaffrey, of course. But the minute you decide I'm going to start, this is dating back like a couple years, I'm going to start Sony Michel this week. James White would go off and score 3 touchdowns. You're like, I can't win. I can't win with this guy. So Bill Belichick's kind of a headache, but I do think he has something in Ramondre Stevenson that can replicate something that LeGarrette Blount maybe did a couple years ago. Even what Sony Michel did in a starting role there. I do think he is the lead guy there on the New England Patriots offense. So you've got Juju, you got Ramondre, and then I do think Mike Gesicki's going to have some success over Hunter Henry. 63% of his snaps in Miami, he lined up as a wide receiver. He signed a 1-year deal with the New England Patriots. I know Bill Belichick likes this guy. He's only missed 1 game in his career, and he has 11.1 yards as an average depth of target from 2019 to 2021. That's only behind Dan Arnold and Jared Cook. This guy can get out into the middle of the field to make plays. So if you decide not to grab, maybe Travis Kelce or any of the top guys, Hawkinson, Goddard, and Mark Andrews, I think you can kind of wait and get Mike Gesicki, but it might be a week-by-week basis. He's going to be a top streamer this year.
Yeah, everybody hates him. So I have him on a bunch of teams. People couldn't wait to get rid of him, and I love Mike Gesicki. He's an athlete first. I think he's one of those guys who he's not a good blocker. That's his big thing. He's not going to be on the field all the time. He doesn't block. He blocks a little bit, but for the most part, you don't need to block him. You're in a slide. You got a guy 10 yards back or 8 yards back. You run your routes. You do your thing. That kind of thing is he's got a niche. He's got what you're getting when you draft Mike Gesicki. He's going to be a wide receiver, pretty much a slot receiver. So I'm just kind of worried about all the short targets in this offense. Mac Jones is a great quarterback for short yardage. I feel like if he would have went to San Francisco 49ers where he belonged, they may have won the Super Bowl last year. But that's San Francisco's problem, not the Patriots. But the Patriots, they just have to figure out how to use all these short yardage guys and make it happen. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think Mac Jones was the pick that year at number 3. I think there was a difference in opinion there between Shanahan and John Lynch, but well.
We'll talk about bad picks. We got the Jets coming up next, and they picked Zach Wilson at number 2, and then they said, we can't do that. We're going to take Aaron Rodgers now and make this thing happen. And you got Breece Hall, Michael Carter, who's got a spot in my heart, and my guy who I drafted in pretty much the 4th round in every draft, the end of the 3rd, beginning of the 4th, Israel Abanikanda. I love that dude. I think me and you have talked about him before in the past. How good he is. Bam Knight, also a good running back. I mean, the running back stable in this team is phenomenal. Yeah. If something was to happen to anybody, I think they'd all be able to carry the crown at that point in time. Then you got Garrett Wilson, Al Nazard brought in for as a favor for Aaron Rodgers to come to the team. Mecole Hardman can stretch the field. Corey Davis will probably be a cut, even though I like Corey Davis. kind of a overachieving late draft guy. I think he might have been, was he a 7th round pick or something? But
who's that?
Corey Davis.
Oh, Corey Davis was from the Titans was like a top 10 pick, I believe, out of Western Michigan.
Yeah, maybe I'm getting confused with somebody else who was from a small school that got, they had overachieved. But yeah, probably. Oh, you're right about that. I don't know why.
Fifth overall pick. That's crazy to think about.
Yeah, because he's someone from a small school that I know that everybody kind of always said he's a little engine that could kind of thing like that. But I forgot that he got picked that high. That is crazy to think about that. But you got Charles Irwin, another guy, Denzel Mims, that never really panned out so far. Another high pick in most fantasy football drafts. Another guy that was drafted high in the NFL draft. Tyler Conklin, CJ Uzama, Jeremy Ruckert, Zach Kuntz, the guy who scored a perfect on the RAS score, perfect 10. So this team across the board, and they got a good defense. I mean, this Jets team, Robert Saleh was more of a defensive mastermind anyway. Nathaniel Hackett is the offensive coordinator. I mean, tell me about this Jets team, because they just seem like if everything goes right, there's no stopping this team.
Yeah, I start to look at schedules a little bit. I was starting to look at schedules a little bit the other day. They have a really, really difficult schedule. We're going to know a lot about this Jets team by like mid-October, if they're a playoff team or not. And I think they will be. I think right now, if you ask most people where the Jets are going to finish in the AFC East, I think most people would say 3rd behind the Bills and Dolphins. But I think we're discounting Aaron Rodgers a little bit, and still the kind of player he is. This is a back-to-back MVP the 2 seasons prior to last year. Last year, he didn't have Davante Adams, which is a huge, huge loss for the Green Bay offense when you look at who he was throwing to last year. Aaron Jones was really his leading receiver. So I do think this is the best group of pass catchers he's probably ever had, maybe the best offense he's ever had, and maybe the best defense he's ever had. The Jets team is really, really good. I do feel that they were a quarterback away from making the playoffs. And I know some people, poo-poo the idea of bringing in a 39-year-old quarterback, like, oh, you're not going to win the Super Bowl. I don't know if that's necessarily, I mean, it's always the goal, right? But you do want to see what this team has. You do need to progress. Sometimes just getting to the playoffs is a successful season for these teams. So I still really like Aaron Rodgers. He doesn't run really at all. So as far as fantasy football goes, I think he can throw his way into low-end QB1 numbers, and I do expect him to do that. I don't think many people are going to be too excited about the idea of that. So you can get Aaron Rodgers, I think, for cheap this year. Kind of reminds me of Matt Stafford a couple years ago when he joined the Rams. So I really like Aaron Rodgers this year. Garrett Wilson's the guy I think that most people are going to be targeting in this offense as their wide receiver 1. Just looking at Davante Adams' 2 seasons when Aaron Rodgers was MVP, 26.3 points per game, 22.2 points per game, 159 targets per season on average. Garrett Wilson had 147 targets last year with some really crappy quarterback play. So if he can see the level of targets that Davante Adams saw on average in Aaron Rodgers' MVP seasons, I mean, why can't Garrett Wilson be a top 5 fantasy wide receiver? It's not that crazy of a concept. Maybe some better defenses the Jets are going to face than the Packers did, but we're talking about the former offensive rookie of the year. We're talking about Aaron Rodgers with his offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett, that he had in Green Bay, now in New York. I think the sky's the limit for Garrett Wilson. And as far as the other wide receivers go, I'm not really interested in any of them. We're talking about Alan Lazard, who signed, I think, 2 years, or did he sign 4 years?
I thought it was 2.
2 years, $22 million per year, I think.
If that was right,
like that.
I believe so.
No, 2 years, $22 million total, 11 per year. But he was the top receiver going into last year. Career year, great, but only 60 receptions, 788 yards last year. I think he's a nice little piece, but I don't think he's going to be he's going to have a fantasy impact. As far as the running backs go, I think there's reason to have caution for Breece Hall coming off an ACL injury. We saw Saquon. We've seen guys in the past, coming back from ACL injuries and getting a slow start. I do think they want to get Breece Hall back into the mix as soon as possible because he's obviously going to give them the best chance to win. But we've seen multiple running backs have success in Nathaniel Hackett offense. So I do like Michael Carter, and I do like Izzy Abanikanda maybe mixing in here. Someone's going to be the odd man out. Right now, it does feel like Zonovan Knight a little bit. So if you have him in Dynasty, maybe try to sell high. I don't know if that's possible, but I think it's Aaron Rodgers and I think it's Garrett Wilson, and it's going to almost mimic what he did with Devontae Adams in Green Bay. And I think those are the guys. That would be such a nice stack in fantasy football. You can get Garrett Wilson super early and wait to get Aaron Rodgers later. You're going to be cooking with gas.
Especially because I really, like you said before, I think that the Jets make the playoffs this year. It all depends on how they start the season. The first 4 or 5 or 6 weeks, if they have a rough start, that's good. But if they get off and get some luck and win some games early, and they can get that momentum going throughout the season, this team could be. They would rival the Eagles. They'd rival the 49ers as far as like Super Bowl contenders, because this team is that good.
I'm gonna go through their first few games. You quickly gut check. Tell me if it's a win or a loss. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
First game of the season, I believe it's Sunday Night Football, maybe Monday Night Football. They host the Buffalo Bills.
Oof. That's man.
Right out of the gate.
I'm going to say Buffalo just because Buffalo's got more continuity.
Okay.
So I'll say
so
Buffalo.
They're 0-1. The Jets are 0-1 all of a sudden. Then they go to Dallas and play the Cowboys week 2.
The Cowboys have their own set of issues also. So
okay.
I might go with, just because the Jets defense is so good, I'm going to go with the Jets on that game.
So they get a nice little road win. Okay, then they host the Patriots.
I think the Patriots are in the kind of a limbo. The whole team changed. I'm going to go Jets on that game.
Okay, so let's call them 2-1. Then they host the Kansas City Chiefs. I think this is the turning point in the season.
The Chiefs have Mahomes does some magic. I feel like this is one of those years where they're going to try and figure out some other way to run this offense. They don't have the gadget players. There's nobody that's a special player on this entire team, the Chiefs, besides Kelsey. I thought they're going to try and factor in a bunch of people and be cute and just make the playoffs and then get to the Super Bowl after that. But I'm still going to have to say the Chiefs are the favorite, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. I think it'll be a pretty good game. So 2-2.
So they'll be 2-2, and then they go to Denver.
The Jets.
Yeah, so now they're 3-2, but then they host the Eagles. It's a lot of back and forth.
The Eagles are just so good.
That's kind of their whole season. It's a lot of like, oh, that's a winnable game, but you could also see them losing some of these. So I do think those first couple games are really important. If they can have a 500 record after those, I think they'll be okay.
I agree with that 100%. This is a really good team, and a 500 record after that kind of murderer's road beginning of the season. I'd be happy with that. Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of the Eagles and all the rest of these guys, let's start off in the NFC East here. We got let's go to the Dallas Cowboys. We talked about them a minute ago. Dak Prescott's the man. Tony Pollard just got he's not going anywhere. They haven't brought anybody in there talking about bringing Zeke back. Deuce Vaughn is about 5'4", 118 pounds. So I'm not sure what he's going to do, but good receiving back anyway. If you watch his YouTube videos or any of his highlight tapes, the guy is a fantastic playmaker. CeeDee Lamb is one of my favorite receivers. Brandon Cooks was a great addition. Michael Gallup, good receiver. A solid wide receiver 3. I think an underrated solid wide receiver in Michael Gallup. Jalen Tolbert, I think I traded in like 15 drafts last year to move up to get Jalen Tolbert and Bell from Cleveland, and both of those guys just fell on their face. So not very happy about those moves. That's why I hate draft picks. Jalen Brooks, they drafted, and they got Semi Fehoko, which a lot of people don't know about, but decent wide receiver. The rest of the depth chart's garbage. Luke Shoemaker, which is a huge acquisition for this team. I don't think he's going to be a boom right away player. Jake Ferguson might start out the season as or Peyton Hendershot. I'm not sure which one of these guys is going to work out, but they do use a tight end pretty often. So it's a good dynasty spot for Shoemaker, but I'm not sure how it's going to start out the season as far as that goes. Someone's going to get some targets at the tight end position, but I'm not sure who it's going to be to start the season off. But Shoemaker is by far the long shot, the guy they have in dynasty to sit on. So with Mike McCarthy coming here in this offense and Brian Schottenheimer as the offensive coordinator, what do you think about the Cowboys? Because this team they just can't seem to find their personality.
Yeah, their personality is making the playoffs and then disappointing everyone. I hate to say it, but back to back. I'm an Eagles fan. Let's just get that out of the way. But I think I can put on an unbiased cap here. Dallas Cowboys still scare me. They're always in the mix. They always feel like they're in the mix because they always are in the mix. Back-to-back 12-5 seasons. So they're still one of the most successful teams in the league. Over the last 2 seasons, they finished in the top 4 on points per game average. So this is a very high scoring offense. They were actually the highest scoring offense in 2021. But the elephant in the room is they've moved on from offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. He's now with the Los Angeles Chargers. So Mike McCarthy supposedly is going to be calling the plays. Kellen Moore's offense was a lot of horizontal stuff, get the ball in playmakers' hands and see them get down the field. I do think Dak Prescott's going to go downfield a lot more this year. Bringing in Brandon Cooks is a big indication of that. I thought trading for him was a huge move. But CeeDee Lamb is really the guy here that is going to really flourish, and he could continue to flourish, really. 28.6% target share. That is just what you want to see in a wide receiver one. I know Brandon Cooks is coming here, but I think that actually kind of helps CeeDee Lamb a little bit more. Maybe his target share dips a little bit, but what he's going to do with those targets is going to be a little bit more significant, maybe one-on-one coverage, a little bit more into the open field. He was tied with Stephon Diggs for 4th in targets across the league last season. So, again, we're talking about a wide receiver one here. Looking at their other pass catchers from last year, Noah Brown and Dalton Schultz, tight end and wide receiver, they're both on the Houston Texans now. They leave behind 29.7% target share combined. So, even though Brandon Cooks is joining this offense, there's still plenty of targets to go around. And I do think there's going to be an uptick in their passing attack now that Ezekiel Elliott's not there. I think the obvious choices when you're drafting players from this offense, I know there's a lot of good players. You mentioned Michael Gallup. I think he's kind of a wide receiver handcuff, if there is such a thing, that if Cooks or CeeDee Lamb were to go down, I think you can plug in Michael Gallup to your lineup. But week to week, you're not really trusting him. It's CeeDee Lamb. It's Tony Pollard, who has no competition in that backfield. His only competition right now is Ronald Jones and Deuce Vaughn, who's about the size of my nephew. He's 5'5",
Malik Davis was somebody's fantasy love for a little while, but I'm not sure he's going to pan out to be anything if there's a case for an injury either.
Yeah, there's still a chance they bring Zeke back, but yes. I think bringing Zeke back is more as a I don't think they're going to lean on him if he's back. I think it's more of a red zone option. Hey, can you get us? Can you put points on the board? Can you churn out yards? I think Tony Pollard is going to have a fantastic year. And like I said, CeeDee Lamb is going to be a wide receiver one, a sure thing. As far as tight ends go, Dak does like to throw to his tight ends, but you got to remember too, like I said, Kellen Moore, a lot of horizontal short passing attempts for Dak. I don't think he's going to utilize his tight ends as much. I think we're going to see a lot from CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks this year. And I really like Dak as a quarterback one again. Doesn't run a lot, but I think this team's going to put a ton of points on the board through the air.
A team that's not going to have a problem with tight end this year is the New York Giants, because they brought in Darren Waller, who, if he stays healthy, he will have a really nice season this year. Even though they have a lot of slot receivers on this team, Daniel Jones has a lot of options besides Saquon Barkley in his offense this year. Wandell, when he gets healthy. Then Jalen Hyatt, Paris Campbell, Isaiah Hodgins. You got Darius Slayton. You brought in Bryce Ford Wheaton. Sterling Shepard, Colin Johnson. You got a bunch of guys on this team that are okay, but it seems like a lot of them, just like Jameson Crowder, they all just kind of play the same position. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. A lot of short targets on this team, a lot of efficiency. And Daniel Jones can run the ball too if everybody's covered on these short routes. How much of an impact is Darren Waller going to have on this Giants team?
Well, my saying for the New York Giants wide receivers this year, and it's a theme, is you're either slot or you're not. It really just seems like everyone is going to play that position. I actually have a podcast on fantraxhq.com, the Fly Fantasy Football Podcast, where I do 5 fast facts of fantasy football every week. And I relate them. I relate facts from around the NFL to how, the fantasy outlook is going to look like for 2023. And one of my facts recently was that the New York Giants have 14 wide receivers on their current roster. And that doesn't even include Jalen Hyatt. I think he just signed the other day, so now it's 15. Not all these guys are going to make the team. When you look at the financial aspect of what they're all guaranteed, there's really only a couple guys that are sure things. Wan'Dale Robinson, obviously rookie Jalen Hyatt. Darius Slayton is making a good amount of guaranteed money. So those three are the guys that I expect to have the most impact for fantasy football. But if you ask me right now, who's going to be the leading receiver on this team, I think you can make a case for Darren Waller. This team drafted Kadarius Toney in the first round a couple years ago and then moved him to Kansas City for a third-round pick and then used that third-round pick to go get Darren Waller. So this new regime of Joe Shane, the GM, and Brian Daboll, the head coach, saw an opportunity to get Darren Waller and turned Kadarius Toney into Darren Waller. And I do think he's capable of 100 targets. From 2019 to 2021, he averaged 8.25 targets per game. But we need to see a little bit more from Daniel Jones. He was the QB 10 last year on a points per game basis. He was one of 4 quarterbacks to rush over 100 times, so that's good. Obviously, you're rushing over 100 times, you're pretty much going to be a quarterback one, but only 15 passing touchdowns last year. It was as high as since his rookie season when he had 24, but I think they just paid him, right? They need to see what he can do in the passing game. Saquon Barkley was really his leading receiver last year. 76 targets. He tied Richie James with 57 receptions. They need to get someone that can, have 80 receptions, push for 1,000 yards, push for 10 touchdowns. And I think Darren Waller is that guy. I think if you ask most people right now, Darren Waller probably slides in at tight end 6. You got
Something
Kelsey,
like that, yeah.
Andrews, Hawkinson, maybe Goddard. So Darren Waller starts to mix in a little bit there. And I think he can, you grab him in the, early to mid rounds. I think he can produce like wide receiver 2 numbers. So I would have to bet Darren Waller is going to be their top receiver this year, but Saquon Barkley is still the man there. 56.7% carries last year. He was the RB5 points per game basis, playing under the franchise tag. Another big year for him.
I'm telling you who I'm afraid of here is Jalen Hyatt, because he's not going to have a choice but to play on the outside. And he's not a guy that can get a lot of separation in the NFL. He's got some great highlight films, the getting open and playing from the slot in college. But I'm kind of afraid to see him on the outside. I think he's going to get jammed at the line a lot and not be able to produce like people think they will on this offense. So he is a natural slot receiver, but he's going to have to play something that he's not really kind of geared to playing right now. So I let someone I'm going to let somebody else take him for a year or so, and then maybe pick him up in year 2, year 3 when somebody else is sick of him. But he's got a lot of learning to do in the NFL, I believe, from what he had done in college. So there's not going to be a lot of people clamoring to get any of these Giants wide receivers on their fantasy teams. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, Jalen Hyatt. I don't know where he's going to go in drafts. I would say all these wide receivers are going to go in double-digit rounds, wouldn't you say? I would say Jamison Crowder is probably the best bet right now. Like for someone to, even though he's not a superstar or a flashy name, Wan'Dale might not come back completely healthy. Hyatt's going to have some problems. Paris Campbell, he's Paris Campbell, nothing special, but somebody like Jamison Crowder might be like a dark horse to lead his offense in early kind of targets, which I'm not sure how much targets you're going to have besides Barkley and Waller. So, yeah, I would stay away from all these receivers, to be honest with you.
I mean, you could throw a late-round dart at any of them, and you might be right that they lead the team in targets, production, but I kind of think it's worth the risk, but it's not something that I'm looking to do in my drafts this year.
What you are looking to do is draft some Eagles, right? You got Jalen Hurts, you got DeAndre Swift, everybody, Nick's fan favorite, DeAndre Swift. My guy, my love of my life, Kenneth Gainwell's on his team, but then they brought in Rashard Penny, and then you got A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, who, I love both of those guys. I should have I had both of them on like 2 or 3 teams, and I should have just kept both of them and ran with it, but I didn't like having 2 receivers on the same team in case the team got skunked ever. You get double zeros or even triple zeros if you had Jalen Hurts to kind of as a triple stack. Quez Watkins, the depth chart kind of falls off the wagon after A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. But it's then you got Dallas Goedert, really good tight end. And it kind of Grant Calcaterra is the last kind of known human being on that depth chart. So tell me about your Eagles here. Fly, Eagles, fly. Go ahead. I saw the Eagles company introduction, so tell me.
Yeah,
You got a couple minutes. Go ahead.
The coffee's cold at this point, but the Eagles are hot. So we could do a whole podcast of me talking about the Eagles. I could talk about the Eagles all day, but I'm actually a little skeptical. I know that might surprise people, but I think last year was the year to really invest in this offense just based on their ADP, right? I think some people, almost everyone was skeptical of Jalen Hurts. I don't think many people thought he was going to progress as he did, not only as a football player, but as a passer. So I think investing in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith last year was the year to do it. This year, I think a lot more people are going to be in, and I'm not saying they're not going to be successful. I think they're going to be very successful, but there's just a lot of mouths to feed on this offense. And I think the way you invest in the Philadelphia Eagles in 2023 is you make getting Jalen Hurts a priority on your fantasy teams. He led all quarterbacks last year in rushing attempts with 165. He obviously was able to support wide receiver 1 seasons from both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But consider Dallas Goedert got hurt midway through the season and missed a chunk of games. A.J. Brown, 124 targets last year. Devontae Smith, 114, while Dallas Goedert missed 5 games. When Dallas Goedert is on the field, he is also a very, very big piece to this offense. So if everyone's healthy and you have Jalen Hurts running the ball, you have all these running backs getting a little piece of the pie, and you have all these healthy, good pass catchers, it's hard to imagine that all of them are going to be as successful week to week. And a lot of people last year kind of crapped on the Eagles and said, who have they played yet? They don't make the schedule, so enough of that. But they're playing a very tough schedule this year. They're playing a first-place schedule. So I think it's going to be a little bit tougher this year. They still have one of the best O-lines, if not the best O-line in football. But I don't necessarily think that Goddard, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, and these running backs are all going to finish as wide receiver, tight end, and running back ones. If anyone's going to take a hit on this offense, it is DeAndre Swift and the backfield. And I am a huge DeAndre Swift fan. I know Nick Scripp is our fearless leader of P2W Fantasy. I know he is too. I think DeAndre Swift is a better fit for the Eagles than for fantasy themselves. Miles Sanders had a career year last year, across the board. Games played, attempts, yards, touchdowns, everything. He had a fantastic season. Running back 18 on a points per game basis. Barely an RB2. That's because Jalen Hurts ran so much. It's because they had such a good passing attack. The Eagles collectively threw to their running backs a total of 61 times. Just 61 times collectively. DeAndre Swift missed a couple games last year for the Lions and still had more targets than all of the Eagles running backs combined with 70. So I don't know if he's going to just slide in and command this massive target share, dice up defenses in the running game, especially with Rashad Penny, the love of your life, Kenneth Gainwell there. There's just a lot going on, and I think the Eagles are going to get overdrafted this year. I think they're all going to be fine. They're all going to be very successful, but I think they're going to get overdrafted. The person that I'm investing in the most, just go get Jalen Hurts. Everything runs through him. He's going to run the ball. He's got the ball in his hands when he's dinking and dunking. I don't see any reason why he can't finish as the QB1 in fantasy football.
Yeah, there's some days you have you have each of the receivers is going to have their week. The AJ Brown's going to have their week. Devonta Smith's going to have their week. It was kind of last year when the season started out when Devonta Smith had no catches, no targets, no nothing.
Yep.
It was like, oh my God, the sky is falling on Devonta Smith. What is going to happen here? Like you said, it might be up and down weeks for these running backs, for receivers, for the tight end, but Jalen Hurts is kind of like a Patrick Mahomes where no matter what happens to the rest of the team, he's going to get tons of points no matter what.
Yep.
His rushing, his passing, his dump offs, his whatever goes on, doing his running behind the wedge and getting first downs and touchdowns.
The tush push.
Yes. We ran a play when I coached in my kids' grammar school team. We ran the wedge probably 15 times a game, and it got sometimes it was a 70-yard touchdown and sometimes it was a 4-yard loss, but it was a great play. The kids love doing it, but they run it perfectly, so we keep it up. Just some breaking news here while we're talking. Aaron Rodgers just went down with an ankle injury. He's off to the side. He's favoring his ankle, checking it out. They said it's something pretty serious. So Aaron Rodgers. Another, as also around like breaking news, Austin Eckler just signed a $2 million contract this year to keep his seat available on the bench or on the field anyway in Los Angeles for the Chargers. So just a little bit of tidbits there. The Aaron Rodgers thing just came across my phone, so I saw that he's on the side with an injury, and I saw 10,000 notifications come across my sleeper. Everybody's trying to, pawn him off right now or make fun of the people who own him, that kind of stuff, busting balls kind of stuff. So, hopefully the injury's not bad, but we'll see what happens. As long we just talked up the Jets, and now this happens. So, but if we want to talk somebody up, we'll talk about the love of my life, above Kenneth Gainwell, above anybody else, Antonio Gibson. Washington Commanders.
Oh yeah,
Antonio Gibson is going to be. I think he is the guy to get this year with Eric Bieniemy coming in there as a dump off, loving offensive coordinator. I can't stand Ron Rivera. I almost want them to do bad this year just so that Ron Rivera can go away forever in anything. I love them on the Bears '85 Super Bowl team, but man, as a coach, the guy drives me nuts. But you got Sam Howell, who. Man, I want to love him so much. His rushing ability. He's got good receivers. He's got Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, De'Ami Brown, which if he ever pans out, who knows. But Logan Thomas and Colt, John Bates are kind of, not panning out to where they're at. So, but I just feel like Sam Howell is a little bit underrated. What do you think about this Commanders team?
Yeah, if you asked me a month ago, I would have said Jacoby Brissett's the QB1, but everything I'm hearing is that Sam Howell is going to get the opportunity to start week 1 for this team. I thought he looked good in the last game of the season last year. He didn't look great. 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But what do you expect from a guy that hadn't really played all year? Eric Bieniemy, that's what's really I'm hung up on. I know he didn't really get a fair shake in head coaching interviews, hasn't gotten a fair shake. I don't really know what to think of that. Why haven't teams interviewed him or chosen him to be their head coach? Or did he want to stay in Kansas City? I'd like a little bit more clarity on that. But now people think this is a lateral move. I think he got the title of assistant head coach to Ron Rivera. So I almost wonder, is this, hey, you're the offensive coordinator in 2023, but hint, hint, you're going to be the head coach in 2024 kind of move. But to go from Patrick Mahomes to Sam Howell and Jacoby Brissett is a very sobering move as far as running an offense goes. I do think you're onto something there with the Antonio Gibson thing, but you're also very much onto something with Ron Rivera. I think Riverboat Ron's a good coach, but the comment that I really stings me a lot is when he called Antonio Gibson the DC CMC, saying he was going to play like Christian McCaffrey in Washington. We have yet to see that. But if he fills in as the Jerick McKinnon role from a Kansas City offense, yeah, we could see a lot of upside as far as a pass catching running back goes. But I think the guy that most people would probably be targeting in this offense is Terry McLaurin, but I've been burned by him before. Wide receiver 21 in 2020 with 14.5 points per game. That's his best ever in fantasy football. Now, granted, the quarterback play in Washington has been bad. So if you do believe in Sam Howell, go get Terry McLaurin. Great, good for you. I'm personally going to avoid him. I think he's one of the best receivers in the NFL that has had below average quarterback play in his entire career. But he got paid. He got the bag last year. So 1,053 or more yards in each of his last 3 seasons. So he can produce, but I'm not taking him to be a wide receiver 1. Those days are, I can't believe in that anymore. So,
right.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see what happens. Brian Robinson seems to be getting pushed to the side here. I think it's big time season for Antonio Gibson. They brought in Chris Rodriguez too, which, he's slow as molasses, but he's a very efficient runner. The fumbling issue from Antonio Gibson is the only thing that keeps him in the doghouse. As long as he doesn't fumble this year and keeps the ball, he's not a punt returner. After he went from DC CMC to he's just a punt returner. Hopefully Eric Bieniemy can change Rivera's mind and keep him on the field. But the only thing that's going to keep Antonio Gibson off the field this year is his fumbling. So that is it. As far as that goes, I heard Sam Howell for the first 4, 5, 6 games, and then if nothing pans out, they're going to turn to Jacoby Brissett, and then possibly looking at tanking or not, looking for the quarterback of the future in next year's draft. But who knows? This is the Commanders, and I want to see Ron Rivera gone. Like I said, that's I never really wish for head coaches to anybody lose their job for that matter. But this guy just does so much stupid shit to piss everybody off. It makes me sick. So, but anything else on these depth charts?
Trying to think. I mean, again, I think we're going to see some surprise cuts come August. Obviously, we're a couple months away from that. I think I'm a little on edge, and I'm always on Twitter. So if you want to follow me, I would appreciate it. I'm always talking football, always down to look at other people's teams and give advice. I love talking about this stuff, but I've recently just been waiting for the notification that Zeke has signed here. Leonard Fournette has signed there. DeAndre Hopkins has been traded there. There's still a lot of guys out there that can impact the fantasy football landscape, and I'm extremely nervous about all of them. And especially DeAndre Hopkins, where he ends up. If he ends up in Buffalo, a team we talked about today, God, what does that do to Stephon Diggs? I mean, Josh Allen to the moon, but man, there's just so many different things that can happen still. And that's why
Kansas City, yeah.
Kareem Hunt, another name, yeah. So there's still a lot of moves to be made that could shake things up. And fantasy football is people say, oh yeah, you got to set your lineup every week. Fantasy football is a daily game. You have to pay attention year round if you want to win. And that's what we do here at P2W. We play to win.
We play to win. Good plug. All right. So thanks for coming on today, Colin. I really appreciate you being on the show. You can tell everybody where they can find you at, all the stuff you do in the wonderful world of fantasy football.
I'm gonna try this on first try. You can follow me on Twitter at Colin_. Yeah, kind of. There we go. McT. And I write for fantraxhq.com. Obviously do live stream stuff and written content for P2W as well. And I think I'll see you at the Expo.
You will. Did you look up that hotel? You see where we're at? Did you?
I'm trying. I'm trying. I think I might get a Airbnb maybe with Blanco and his friend. Trying to see if Nick's going. We got to convince Nick to go.
He just took his brother couldn't make the draft. I got a draft going. All the Illinois, Chicago area kind of guys coming in this league. I got a good league starting. I do these Mighty McGlynn home leagues, and the league I just started now this year. It is. Here, it's babies and boomers. Nick just joined the league. His brother couldn't do it. I got Zach Pulowski, Lucas Perfetti, myself, Pat Fitzmaurice, Tim George, JT Orange, JT, my co-host, usually. Nick's in the league, and then Hutch, Nate Powell from DLF, Chris Joel Smith, who just made some comments earlier on. Joseph Herf, NFL, another guy from the Big Bears guy. So we'll see what happens here. Another good. This will be my 8th, ninth, but now there's 7 that are still going right now. Mighty McGlynn home leagues that we run. So I got I should have brought my rings. I buy rings for every one of the championship players this year. They just came in yesterday, so I got to get them ready for the next show.
So I got to move to Illinois if I want in.
If you want in, you got to move to Illinois. You got to be at, or at least fly in twice a year for the rookie draft.
I could represent Philly. I'll be Philinois.
Illinois. All right, very good. Well, I'm John McGlynn. You can find me on the Twitter machine at John75. Thanks for coming in today. Watch me and Colin McTamany, one of the best in the business, talk about depth charts. And thank you very much. This is why the commissioner evaluation is special to me, because I have special guys like Colin jumping in once in a while and talking about stuff I love to talk about. So thank you, Colin. Thank you, P2W. Join the Patreon. Join all the good stuff that P2W has to offer. Follow all of us and just have a great week. Get ready. Hopefully everything's okay with Aaron Rodgers. And we'll talk to you guys later. Yeah, bad news coming out of camp, but that's how it works. We will see you on the flip side, as those other guys say all the time. All right. Have a good night.